I understand you disagree with what the Democratic lawmakers said in that video, telling troops to disobey illegal orders. It stems from the Nuremberg's defense. So I understand you have questions about that, right? The president, though, in response to that, said that that was sedition, punishable by death, and reposted a post about, hanging, because that's what George Washington would have done. But do you condemn threats of violence against your fellow members of Congress? Can you condemn that?
The threat, there should never be threats of violence, period, by anybody, by either side, right? That's why we live in America, right? Because we don't have to deal with issues like that. Threats of violence are never acceptable. Period. End of conversation. I think what the president was doing, though, was reminding you of the oath that you did take, and there are consequences. So you can have freedom of speech, but freedom of speech does not mean freedom from consequences. And that was the reminder, I think, in that. So everyone focus on I can say whatever I want. Yes, you can say whatever you want, but there are consequences for what you say. And I think that was the reminder he was giving those senators. And I can't tell you how many death threats I have because of the rhetoric that is out there, right? And again, acts of violence should always, always, always be condemned. Just ask the president, right? He had an attempt on his life twice, right? So that's not positive. But take a look at who started this. Those senators got online and said, hey, go ahead, disobey some orders if you don't agree with them. And if you think they're unlawful, talk about illegal orders. Talk about the problem with that, right? Talk about the issue that they started. The problem with the Democrats is they started it. And then when we come in and correct the truth with the other half of the truth, they lose their mind. Perhaps we should just all follow our oath of office and remember that we live in America, which is the best country that anyone can ever live in. So why shouldn't we celebrate that? We've got to stop this Trump derangement syndrome, because it really is not helping anybody.
Well, I just want to be precise, Congresswoman. Should members of the U.S. military or the intelligence community, for that matter, obey what are clearly illegal orders if in their mind what they're being told to do is something illegal? Should they still go ahead and follow those rules?
You're asking an enlisted person for their opinion on what they think is legal or illegal. That's a pretty slippery slope. Wouldn't you agree with that? So that's an interpretation. And what the president has done is not illegal, right? So I would say follow the chain of command. Follow your commander in chief. That's the oath that you took. Because if you leave everything up to interpretation, you could interpret things one way. I could interpret things another way. And that is a very dangerous situation to put this nation in.
Yeah, they keep pointing, though, that during the World War II, these Nazi officers were following the chain of command. They were obeying illegal orders, and they went ahead and slaughtered Jews during the Holocaust, which was clearly illegal. But they at Nuremberg, at the trials of these Nazi generals, they were saying they were simply following the orders. And as a result, in the U.S., they don't want military personnel to be doing that.
Right. And I think we're a long way from the Nuremberg trials and the slaughtering of Jews. If you want to talk about the slaughtering of Jews, we can have that conversation all the time, maybe for another time, with all the rhetoric that's on the other side of the aisle. However, I think what we should do is follow the commander-in-chief, and everything that Trump has done isn't illegal. So I don't even know why we're talking about this. If you don't agree with my situation, you don't get on a public video and say, hey, you don't have to follow the orders if you don't agree with them. And hey, you can interpret them however you want to interpret them. That's extremely dangerous.